Welcome to The Glitter Effect, a podcast dedicated to shining a light on the movers, shakers, change makers, and all-round living legends of our communities who are making a real difference. I'm honoured to welcome someone whose story is not only powerful, but also deeply inspiring. Jen Waltmon is a passionate mental health advocate, suicide prevention leader, and a beacon of strength and purpose. Her journey, shaped by personal lived experience, loss, and resilience, has seen her go from navigating her own mental health challenges to becoming a fierce voice for others who aren't ready or able to speak up yet. Jen has turned her pain into purpose, stepping into roles across some of Australia's most impactful mental health organisations, from Beyond Blue and the Black Dog Institute to her current role as the lived experience lead at Suicide Prevention Australia. Along the way, she's been a storyteller, advisor, speaker, researcher, and a change maker. But more than any title or committee, Jen is someone who truly embodies what the Glitter Effect is all about: showing up, shining a light, and making the world a little brighter for those in dark places. Jen is a self-confessed connector and advocate for so many things. She advocates for human rights, women's rights, LGBTIQ+ rights, and children's rights, and so many more, as well as advocates for our communities to receive better support for mental health, suicide prevention, and reform around accessibility for those with disabilities. And the list goes on. She is a huge advocate for health as well, like being a blood and plasma donor, which is actually how Jen and I connected. So get comfy. This is a heartfelt conversation about grief, healing, advocacy, and how we can all sprinkle a little glitter where it's needed most. Jen Waltmon, welcome to The Glitter Effect.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me. And can I just say thank you for hosting this podcast. It's really highlighting the amazing work that people are doing in our communities. Really happy.
Thank you. I'm loving it. I'm learning so much from so many people. And I just think in a world that's heavy, we need to shine more light on these amazing people like yourself. So let's get into it. Let's start with your story. How did your personal experiences first shape your path onto the mental health and suicide prevention space that you've now found yourself in?
Look, my experience started with mental ill health and suicide kind of back in my 20s. I came from a very dysfunctional home. My mom had some mental health issues as well, and so did my father. They divorced when I was quite young, when I was 5. And then unfortunately, my mom kind of went down the road of alcoholism. My dad was a drug addict and an addictive gambler. And so as a result of that, I unfortunately lost both of my parents quite young. So my dad was, I was 21 when my dad died, and I was 26 when my mom died. So that left me feeling quite isolated and quite lonely. I didn't have any siblings. And then that's around the time I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and I was feeling, I had some suicidal ideation, and I was feeling really kind of at the end of my tether, and I was very close to taking my own life. Over the years, I went to therapy, and I tried my best to just manage daily life. And fast forward to between 2015 and 2017, I unfortunately experienced the loss of 3 people in my life, kind of over that 3-year period. And that had a profound impact on me. And so after 23 years as a learning and development professional and a training professional, I pivoted into mental health and suicide prevention. I kind of started in the area of volunteering. So I was kind of on online forums talking to people about how they were feeling. And I was fundraising. And I became a speaker with Beyond Blue. And so I did a lot of work with them volunteering, and while I was still doing the learning and development roles, but I felt like I just wasn't having enough impact. So in 2021, I started as the Blue Voices manager at Beyond Blue, and I looked after a community of about 6,000 people that had one or more mental health condition, and they used their lived experience to inform policy and make services and supports and programs better within the community. At the same time, still working outside Beyond Blue as well, doing co-design and working on other projects. And so through all of that, I felt like I was doing enough. Unfortunately, my role at Beyond Blue ended, and now I work at Suicide Prevention Australia as the lived experience lead, where my role is similar in that I help people use their voices to inform policy, look at submissions to government, trying to, again, make services and supports and programs better for people in the suicide prevention space. And then I also sit on some advisory groups and committees, and I'm part of my local council. So I kind of feel like I'm where I need to be now.
Goodness me, that is a lot that you are doing. It doesn't leave you much time to yourself, I wouldn't think. But just going back to you talking about your own private journey, your own personal journey, you've openly shared that you, with your journey from crisis to recovery, and you now say you've moved into thriving. Can you tell us what thriving means to you? Because I'm assuming it means different things to different people.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. For me, it just means that I like to say that I started my journey in crisis and moved through to recovery and well-being, and now I'm in that thriving area. So what that means to me is that my journey, like so many people's journey, has come full circle.
Yeah.
So I was in crisis for a period of time, but through clinical support and resources and the help of others and trauma-informed programs, I got through it, and I was starting to feel like I was healing and recovering. But I also felt like I was able to better engage in life. My work was improving, my relationships were improving. I was able to find my own happiness.
Yep.
And although I feel like healing and recovering is something that I will do for the rest of my life, it's not something that I've completed and it's done and I've ticked a box. It's still something that I'll be doing for the rest of my life. At the same time, I feel like I'm thriving as well. So now I'm able to use my own voice to, again, inspire people with my story, perhaps, but also using my lived and living experience of ill mental health and suicide for good. So I'm in that space where I'm thriving and I'm doing what I feel like I need to be doing. So not just existing, but doing a bit more.
Which, you're incredible to be able to do that, because some people that would be way too hard to even fathom doing something like that. But to have your own journey and then to go on and help others, it's so incredible. My hat goes off to you because it must be a very hard because, you've throughout the time you've experienced loss and pain and resilience, and with that comes grief. What have you learned about grief, and how has that transformed you into who you are today, do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say, following it from what you said as well, not everyone is ready to use your lived or living experience, and that's fine. I just wanted to make a point that just because you've gone through something or you've experienced grief or loss doesn't mean that one day you're going to wake up ready to share that. It's a process, and I think everyone's journey is different, and we all manage our own grief and loss differently. So it's taken me a while to get to the point where I felt ready to share my lived experience. So in terms of my loss and pain and my grief and how it's transformed me, I feel like I've said this all along because I lost my parents at such a young age. I would never wish my grief or loss on anyone. It's a hard thing to deal with and continually and at such a young age in my 20s as well, and then continuing on with the suicides of people that I've faced. I feel like it's been hard at best and debilitating at its worst. But at the same time, I feel like the grief that I've endured and I've faced and tried to manage is something that's helped me shape who I am. It kind of has made me who I am today. And I feel like who I am today is probably more empathetic, more patient, more inquisitive, and more passionate and more driven. So again, I wouldn't wish, that kind of grief or loss on anyone. But at the same time, there can be, I suppose, positive outlooks or positives that come out of grief and loss, and that is being able to use it for good.
Yeah, that's very powerful. So you said you spent 20 years in learning and development, is that right? Before you pivoted into suicide prevention full time. What was that shift like for you on a professional and personal level? Because again, there's so much crossover. Do you decompartmentalize it, or is it you just accept that it's going to cross over? Talk me through that.
I think it was a big leap. I didn't expect to be able to use a lot of what I had gained in terms of skills and I suppose engagement with my learning and development roles, and be able to use that in mental health and suicide prevention. And I also had to consider, but I did. That's the spoiler alert. I was able to. But also something I had to consider was that I was also changing what I was doing. So I was changing what I was doing, but I was also changing from the corporate sector into the not-for-profit sector, which was a big deal. And people that have worked in both sectors would know what I'm talking about when I say, and you probably can attribute to this as well, Kate. The money that was there that seemed easily available, easily readable. It was consistent. The money to fund things like training someone how to use software almost seemingly dried up when I went into mental health and suicide prevention, which is really sad that, a bucket of money can be so easily available and ready to go for something. I don't know which word to use when I say software training, because it is important. Software training is very important, but suicide prevention is very important as well. And so we need the funding, and we need the consistent funding and money around trying to develop and deliver and make available those programs and support services for people. So that was a big adjustment for me to go, wait a minute, what do you mean there's not enough money to do this? Yeah. So that was a big adjustment for me. But getting back to what you were saying about those skills that I gained in learning and development, where I feel really grateful that they were transferable, and that I was able to use the program management and the project management and all of that stuff that I learned as a trainer and a facilitator. A lot of was community engagement as well, and transfer that into mental health and suicide prevention, because there is crossover, and you wouldn't think that there is, but there definitely is that crossover. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with community engagement, just being able to engage with people, speak with people, and make sure that you're across things like diversity and inclusion, making sure that what you're doing with people and how you're engaging with people is an equitable, good experience for everybody engaged and everybody involved. So again, I think in summary, transferable skills are game changers. Yeah.
And again, that's not everyone, is it? That's this is obviously your wheelhouse, because you're very comfortable in this space, and over time you've worn a huge number of hats and still continue to wear different hats as a volunteer, a speaker, advisor, manager, peer researcher, and now, as you say, the lived experience lead at Suicide Prevention Australia. Has there been a particular role or a project in your journey to date that has felt like the most meaningful or impactful to you so far? It's a tricky one. It's a hard one. I know, and that's fine if it's not, but sometimes it could be very simple, sometimes it's a few, but yeah.
I feel like I've worked on a lot of projects and campaigns and initiatives and even evaluations, but if I had to name one or two, I would say there's two. One is a project that I led at Beyond Blue, and that was that we hired a professional photographer. We asked 10 Blue Voices, that's the community with lived experience. We asked 10 Blue Voices members to come in and they very graciously gave time to us for the photographer to capture their images on film. For me, I feel like that's essential, because that is framing and showing the people with lived and living experience. They're human. They're not just a name on a piece of paper or some words on a piece of paper. They are the actual people that have the lived or living experience of ill mental health or suicide, and we're able to see them just as they are. So, and those are the beautiful humans from very diverse backgrounds and walks of life. So again, it kind of became 2D to 3D when you gave a face to those people. And I thought it was really important instead of just having kind of the models that you find on Google. These are the actual people that we're representing Beyond Blue from the Blue Voices community. And if you go on the website and see some of the newsletters in the Blue Voices section, you can still see those members that we took pictures of. So I think that was really important. The other one is a more recent project that I feel very privileged that I worked on and contributed to from a co-design perspective. And that was with 7 members of Suicide Prevention Australia's Lived Experience panel. Together, we wrote a recognition of lived experience for the National Suicide Prevention Conference in Perth in May this year. And it was recited numerous times during the conference by multiple presenters and speakers. And requests are still coming in 3 months later for them to be able to share and reshare the acknowledgement across various spaces and various organizations. So it was very amazing to collaborate with such diverse, passionate people with lived or living experience of suicide, who again were ready to do that kind of work with us. And then being able to share it again and again because it resonates with so many people across our communities. So you can see, just a little disclaimer, you can see a revised copy of that recognition of lived experience on the Suicide Prevention Lived Experience page.
Amazing. Well done.
Yeah.
Gosh, just a side note, do you sleep?
I do from time to time, but then I wake up with ideas of how to engage with more people. So yes.
Yeah, you're full of passion, and I love that. Now, we're talking about this, the area that you're in. It's you'd have to balance that emotional intensity of your work with your own well-being, and we do focus a lot on well-being. There must be days when it's actually quite hard to show up. What helps you keep going, and what do you do on those days to help you get through them?
Look, as with any job, I think we all set boundaries, which is really healthy. But yes, working in suicide prevention and working in mental health can feel heavy some days. And you're right, it's sometimes hard to show up some days as well. I just want to stay in bed. But really what keeps me going inherently is the belief that we're all good eggs. And, knowing that those good eggs are out there, that I'm not alone in my grief and my dark thoughts. But I'm also not alone in my well-being, in my happiness, and the things that make me happy and that keep me going. So I feel like, it takes a village, right? It takes a community to support each other and lift each other up when we need it. So connecting with the good eggs and keeping those connections going is really what keeps me going. And that really fills my cup. And I try to do a bit of that every day. Also knowing that we're doing it together. I think I was actually talking, my sister rang me this morning because she's got a friend that's in distress and she's a little bit worried about her. And she asked me for some advice because she knows I work in suicide prevention. And I just said, oftentimes it's just for people knowing that they're not alone can be enough. And even if you're not talking, I said, you may end up just having a coffee with her or watching a movie with her. It's knowing that you're not alone, that keeps me going. And that keeps me in my role doing what I'm doing. And it keeps me above water, I suppose, for lack of a better cliche, because then I know that I'm not alone in what I'm doing. And I also know I'm not alone in my grief and my loss. And when I have those dark thoughts, that there are people out there that will sit with me either in silence or sit with me and have a chat. And then in the interim, when I'm not engaging with community, I've created my own kind of self-care to-do list as well. So just simple things like listening to my favorite music, getting out in nature, having a walk. One of my favorite things, and it sounds very simplistic, but it's closing my eyes turning my face towards the sun and letting the sun just warm my face. That for me, that just gives me an instant lift. Sounds a little bit simplistic, but it works for me. So everyone should have kind of their go-to self-care plans. But yeah, I think in summary, probably just knowing that I'm not alone really keeps me going.
Yeah, that's so good. And you're right. I think it's an area where a lot of people, not everybody, obviously, a lot of people are scared to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing with someone who may come across as vulnerable in this space. And, as you say, it's better to say something and be there and do something than to do nothing at all. And I think as a society, we're learning that slowly. But I think, the more we talk about things like this, the more people will appreciate that, you don't have to do big things. It's the small things that matter. And
Can I just say, you're so right, Kate, about that, because every year around Are You Okay Day as well, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to check in on someone because I'm afraid of what they'll say. If I ask them, are you okay? And they say no, what will I say back? And look, that is a conversation I think that we have all year round, not just around Are You Okay Day. And I think the important thing I think for people to remember is that you don't have to be a mental health professional to help someone that you feel like may be struggling. What really the only requirement to asking someone if they're okay is to be able to listen to them and listen deeply. So if they're asking you or they're telling you how they feel, just to listen to them. Sometimes people just need to be heard.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily looking for a solution. So even just the act of being there for someone and either sitting and listening to their story or sitting in silence, you're being there for them. You're being that kind of person, that supports person for them. So that's really, really important. So I just think that's one of those things where people, like you said, might feel too scared to say something or too scared to ask the question. And most of us aren't mental health professionals. So if you find that, you ask the question, they say that they're not okay, is to stay with them until you can find someone that can help them, whether that be a mental health professional, their doctor, or another support person that can help them. So that's a really big one.
That's good advice. That's really good advice. And on that, where do you think, given your extensive experience in this sector, where do you think we're making real progress in as far as suicide prevention? And where do you think we've still got a bit of way to go?
Look, I think lived and living experience inclusion we are progressing with lived and living experience inclusion. It's slowly but surely progressing. And it's important to know that without the insights of people with lived or living experience of suicide, the insights, the knowledge, the expertise for programs and services and supports won't work. So I think some people try to create new programs, new services, new supports, and they don't talk to community. They don't talk to the people with lived and living experience. And that's why I think oftentimes those services or supports will fall over or not work. So it's really important to engage with the people with lived and living experience to make sure that they work. And so I think we're making progress. And again, it's slowly but surely happening. But I think in terms of lived experience, because that's a whole other conversation that we can have another time, but in terms of lived and living experience, to put it simply, if you want to know what resonates with someone and what works for someone, you ask what resonates with you, what lands for you, what works for you. And the same holds true for suicide prevention. So people with lived or living experience should be informing what services and supports are needed out in the community. So they have used those services. They've undergone programs. They've received the support. And so they know best as to what should inform those things to keep them running. They felt bereavement. They felt the grief and the loss. And they felt the fear and isolation as well. So, they can speak to what's leading them to feeling distress. And so that's why it's important to have that lived experience or living experience at the table. And also to sustain and scale suicide prevention, we also need to make sure that we put people with lived or living experience in leadership roles so that they can lead the charge in terms of lived experience. So
Yeah.
and then in terms of ways to go, this is going to sound strange, but I think we have a ways to go in terms of working more collaboratively. And that means that not everything can be, we can't have everything for everyone coming from one organization or one person. There's lots of organizations and lots of people out there doing amazing work, but they can't do everything, nor should they. They shouldn't be expected to be everything to everyone. So I think there's so much more power and impact when you're collaborating with other organizations, with governments, with PHNs, with everyone to wrap around care for people. So I think instead of saying, hey, I'm this organization and I can do everything for you, say, I can do this really, really well, but I'm going to lean on these other organizations to help you holistically to make sure that you're getting all of the support that you need. But it's going to take a team. It's going to take a village to help support this person. So I think we could do that better.
Yeah. And that's what I was just going to say. It goes back to your adage, doesn't it? It is that village analogy. Yeah. In every sense of the word, together you can do more as opposed to working in silos. And that's so true for so many different parts of our lives. What have been some of the biggest challenges or even unexpected lessons that you've faced in working across any of all of your roles, or any in particular that spring to mind?
I think anytime change is needed, true change that impacts people and is community led, I think time is the most important consideration. And by that, I don't mean speed things up or slow things down. I just mean make time a priority. Yeah. So if you're advocating for something, it's usually because I would imagine it's sometimes because it's urgent, like suicide. Yeah. So in that case, action must be the result of our advocacy, and time is of the essence. But the way we often action advocacy is through co-design or advisory roles or consulting roles. And then here's where time plays a role in safety. So people with lived or living experience of ill mental health or of suicide, they hold so much insight and so much knowledge, but it's often the result of trauma. Yeah. And so asking for input, feedback, or insights from people with lived or living experience can be unsafe. Or if you're rushing through it, it can feel like it's a tokenistic, I need lived experience, I need a tick box ticked. So that in that essence, then, time needs to slow down a bit and feel safe and like a good experience for people. So I guess the challenge and the unexpected lesson, both, are the importance of having enough time, but then also advocating for more time before we run out of it.
That's that's very powerful. Very powerful. Now, just a little bit more lighthearted. Okay. We talk. It's obviously the Glitter Effect podcast, and we talk a lot with all our guests about who has inspired us, our fellow glitter kings and queens, who have inspired us along in our journey to help us be where we are today. Are there any glitter kings or queens in particular that have got you to where you are?
I think there have been a lot of people along my journey that have helped me, but I can think of two glitter queens off the top of my head. The first is my grandmother. She was 96 when she passed back in 2014. But wow, did she leave a mark on me? She epitomized the independent woman, working woman. She helped me find my voice, and she didn't take crap from anyone. She was very strong. And she led the charge for women on the radio back in the 60s and the 70s. Yeah. And she did it with such grace and also a very keen sense of fashion. So she was pretty amazing. She was quite a queen.
And the
second, she was amazing. The second glitter queen that I'll mention is my partner in crime and my fiance, Tanya. Yep. She came into my life just over 7 years ago, and she's added so much glitter to my world. She has this way about her and an energy that people tend to gravitate towards. When she speaks or when she tells a story, it's like she's holding court. So even though technically she's not a queen, or at least we don't think she is, there's something very special about her that makes her sparkle inside and out. And my life and my achievements, I suppose, so far over the past 7 years would not be possible without her generosity, her patience, her sense of adventure, and her caring heart. So
That's
she's
special. I love that. Two amazing people. And then there's you who radiates glitter and leaves a trail everywhere she goes. You're amazing, amazing. Now, a couple more questions before we go. If someone is listening right now and is feeling isolated or unsure where to start, whether it's for themselves or for a loved one, what's one small step that you would encourage them to do to take today?
For anyone feeling lonely, isolated, feeling like they're at the end of their tether, I would say please just reach out to a friend, a family member, or someone you trust. Again, they don't have to be a mental health professional or a doctor. They just need to be someone that you can talk to, that you can trust. And in fact, it may be that you help them find someone in a professional capacity that can help them with therapy or medication or alternative therapies, which I'm a fan of, things like art or music programs, wellness initiatives like yoga, dancing, meditation. There are a lot of those out there as well. But I think the first step is just to reach out and check in. Now, in saying that, though, for the people that are in distress and sometimes in suicidal distress as well, oftentimes they have a hard time reaching out. They may not feel like they can. They may not know who to reach out to, how to reach out, where to go. So I would say for the people that you notice if they're struggling, if there's a change in their behavior, I encourage people to reach into those people and ask them how they're going. And again, I know that sometimes can be hard or feel awkward. But I always say to people, I know this sounds a bit much, but I would rather reach out and be that annoying person than to attend your funeral. Yeah. So, it's important that we reach in, especially if we notice any changes in people's behavior. And that's the kind of advice that I gave to my sister this morning as well, who was worried about her friend. And she said to me, oh, her friend is, she's worried that there'll be stigma if she tells anyone how she's feeling. So I said, well, just keep reaching in to her and just be that annoying friend. So I think, so it kind of goes both ways. We always say reach out, but for the people that aren't feeling like they have the capacity to reach out, reach into the ones that we're worried about as well. And again, if we can't help them or if they don't feel comfortable talking to us, we can always help them go talk to their doctor or call their trusted person. Or call someone that can help them in a different capacity.
Great advice. Great advice. And if anyone listening wants to find out more about the work that you do at Suicide Prevention Australia, where can they find that out, Jen?
Well, you can go to our website. And this is not a sales thing, but it's really because Suicide Prevention Australia is the peak body for suicide prevention in Australia. That means that we support over 200 members that have people employed by them. So we're talking thousands of people that offer the services and supports. And we've just added something on the website, which I'll give you here in a second, which is a member directory. So when you look at the member directory, you can see exactly what that member organization does and what kind of services or supports they provide. So if you're looking for some kind of specific support, you'll know which ones to reach out to, where they're located in Australia and kind of what they do. So if you go to suicidepreventionaust.org, that's the website. But if you type in Suicide Prevention Australia, you will find the website. Okay. And there's also a contact us page. So if you're needing something a bit more immediate for yourself or for a loved one, then there are the crisis lines and those kind of contacts as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a great resource. Thank you for sharing that, Jen. We've reached the end of our chat, but I feel like we could go on. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me on The Glitter Effect today and so generously sharing your open, honest and deeply raw story. And I know our listeners will appreciate it too. Your courage to speak about your lived experience with such vulnerability and strength is truly powerful and a gift to anyone who listens to it. Conversations like this one we shared are not just important, they're essential, as you identified. In a world where far too many still suffer in silence, your voice lights the way forward. And we hope it continues as well. You remind us that it's okay to not be okay, that healing isn't linear, and that by talking openly, we create spaces for others to feel seen, supported, and less alone, which sounds simple, but I think we all need to remind ourselves of that. Thank you for being a voice for those not yet ready to share theirs. You truly embody what it means to spread your glitter, not with fanfare, but with purpose, heart, and humanity. I wish you all the very best, and thank you again for your time today, Jen. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for joining me, Kate Ganneil, on The Glitter Effect. If you've loved this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep showing up, making an impact, and sprinkling that glitter wherever you go. Bye for now.